in her home state of, where's Jenny? Are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Jenny. How's it going today?
This is Jane. Hello.
Oh, sorry, Jane. I was just talking about Jenny. I'm sorry. I think if your computer is up, I'm getting a bit of an echo here. Can you turn your sound box down?
I was tuning in, and I just put you on mute, so hopefully that'll clear up shortly.
Oh, so many people want to do that. Good for you. Put me on mute. So how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for having me on. How are you doing today?
I'm going through a slog right now, to be honest with you, but this isn't about me now. I've already got me out of the way. We want to talk about you. Now, unfortunately, you have multiple sclerosis. Is that right?
I do. I've had it for most of my life, actually.
Oh, how old a little girl were you when you found out?
Well, I was in my 20s when I got diagnosed, but they were able to track back my first documented exacerbation in my late teens.
Oh my goodness.
So, it was strange getting diagnosed with it only because, I had felt this way for so long. I thought that everybody felt that way.
Oh my
and
goodness.
So when I finally got diagnosed,
Right.
and found out it wasn't normal for me to be feeling this way, it took me a moment to digest.
Right.
To say
I'm
the
sure
least.
it did. What kinds of symptoms or what kinds of experiences did you now know are negative, but at the time you just thought they were normal? What kind of things that you would sort of eventually lead you to the doctor's office for a diagnosis?
Well, I was experiencing a lot of fatigue, abnormal fatigue. With MS fatigue, it's different. It's not like just being tired. It's actually like narcoleptic fatigue where you're just functioning just fine. And then all of a sudden you just pass out. I mean, you literally fall over where you're at in a narcoleptic way. And so that was strange. And then I had a lot of strange nerve sensations.
Right.
And I was incredibly klutzy. And one of the biggest things is I remember getting diagnosed, and the neurologist had me go through all these kind of drunk driving tests, like road tests, when you get pulled over and they test you to see if you've been driving or drinking, rather.
Right.
And I failed every single one of those tests. And I nervously laughed and I said, but who can do all that, And he did each and every one of those tests. And it was very strange. I just figured I was a real klutzy person and everybody had weird sensations in their bodies.
Wow. So you're dropping things
Yeah.
and spilling things and that kind of deal.
Falling a lot.
Right. And do you have any siblings?
I do. I'm the youngest of 5 children. And actually, my father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was in my teens. And so in my early teens, actually. So I was very familiar with this disease by the time I got diagnosed with it.
Oh. Are we just one second. Are we still good for volume? Let me know, Kim, if you're having some volume problems apparently with the podcast, which we have to deal with because it's live. I don't know why that is. All my levels are where they're usually at, so I don't know. Okay, so that's did you ever spend time with your these? What I'm trying to say is when you thought you felt normal and that everybody felt that way, did you get into conversations with your sibling and say, and start to realize the difference?
At that point, yeah, I did. And, I was already married by the time I got diagnosed, and it was right after the birth of my first child, which is often when women especially get diagnosed because any kind of, physical trauma to your body will generally trigger an MS exacerbation. And that's exactly what the birth of my daughter did. It triggered this major flare-up, which got me diagnosed.
Wow.
So after that, it was, I mostly went over things with, I think, my husband and some other family members, sure. But I realized very quickly that everyone else did not feel the same way I felt.
Oh my goodness. So when you were diagnosed, and that must have been like getting a hammer over the head, learning that in the first place.
Yeah, it was. It was right after the birth of my first child too. So, I mean, she was just a couple months old. And, so I thought I had this big bright future of, finally having, giving birth. I was on fertility drugs too for over a year to have her. So we really worked hard to have children. And then, I had a baby and got this diagnosis just a few weeks later. It rocked our world for sure.
Yeah, so now you're just coming out of motherhood. Now, what might have happened had you been a pregnant woman and already starting to take any kind of medication that they were having? That couldn't have been a good idea to have a fetus inside you and then taking some kind of MS medication.
No, I was advised not to have any more children. And it wasn't really due to the medication. It was due to the damage that it does on your body. You're really, once you get diagnosed with MS, you're told that anything any kind of physical or emotional stress will progress the disease. It's not even a question. It certainly will. So, they do not advise having children once you get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. My husband and I chose to have another child. It was never our intention just to have one. So we had two children. And after the birth of my son, my second child, I was actually, my disease did progress quite a bit, like they predicted. And I was in a wheelchair for 6 years, an electric wheelchair, after the birth of my son.
Which years of your life were you in an electric wheelchair? How old to which age?
Well, the last time I used a wheelchair was August 4th, 2012. And I guess I went in when I was about 30, just to turn 30 years old. Yeah. So I was across the street one day having dinner with my neighbors, and in the middle of dinner, my legs went numb from the waist down, and I really didn't have use of them and couldn't bear weight. And there I sat and they put me on chemotherapy actually to slow the progression.
What,
And
really? I've never heard of that. Is that chemotherapy for MS?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, I went through chemotherapy for 3 years to slow the progression. And I was on 27 different pharmaceuticals. And finally, my doctor recommended cannabis as a last resort. And I got off all those pharmaceuticals.
Okay, so what you just said was you took a boatload of pharmaceuticals for an extended period of time, and none of that really worked and probably only caused problems and toxic loads from the carrying agents inside and maybe some other side effects. And then when all of that didn't help you out, now it's time to take this green stuff that you're still enjoying. Don't you wish you'd done it the other way around?
Well, yeah, what's funny is I was a child of the 80s, and I really believed weed could kill me. And so I never did drugs in high school, unfortunately. And so I had never even tried cannabis recreationally. So this was the very first time I tried it. I was 29 years old and married and scared, and really thought it could kill me even then.
You thought cannabis could kill you?
Oh, absolutely. Up until a few years ago. I thought, I didn't know that weed was safe.
Wow. That is something. What a turnaround you've been on so many levels. My goodness. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. A complete 180.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And, it was instant. The relief that I felt when I started smoking the cannabis. I was petrified, but within minutes, I had feeling again in my legs. And I started to cry just because it was so incredible. It was like a miracle. And I haven't been without cannabis a day since. And I got off all those medications. And I got out of the wheelchair. And I just finished a half marathon in October.
A half marathon?
Yes, sir.
And do you mind if I ask how old you are right now?
I'm 42 years young.
You're 42 years young. You spent a lot of your 30s, the bulk of your 30s, in a wheelchair, and now you're doing a half marathon. That's incredible.
That's right.
I'm
living it up in my 40s.
I'm not going to press this, but I have to ask because you're already an amazing woman. It's been fun watching your stuff online, but I have to say,
Thank you.
if you are now doing a half marathon, don't act like I'm putting this on you. But do you have any plans to do an entire marathon? Because it wouldn't
Yes,
surprise
I'm
me.
going for it this year.
You're going to do that this
No,
year.
that's exactly what I'm going for this year. That's exactly what I'm going for this year. So I'm chasing my dream of completing, a full marathon. And it's taken me a really long time. Like I said, since August 2012, I have been on this journey, putting one foot in front of the other, literally, to try and complete this marathon. And I will get there. I did, like I said, the half in October, and this year I'm training for the full. And I actually have corporate sponsors behind me. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, I'm excited about that, and I'm excited that I know, a long time ago I used to do this show. It felt like I was just shouting down the center spindle of a paper towel roll, and there was no one at the other end. But I've started to get some feedback from a lot of people, and I understand that these information blasts that we're able to do once a week are helping a lot of folks. So I want to make sure that if anybody is out there listening to, how terrible their life is going due to some kind of physical or emotional or whatever kind of thing it is that can be remedied with cannabis, listen to this woman. She's in a friggin' wheelchair. She can't have kids. What a mess. Next thing you know, she's running a half marathon and then a marathon. You're doing exactly the opposite of the downward trajectory that you were given. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's Thank you.
You're welcome. It's astounding to observe.
Well, I have to. I feel. I feel a little bit bad. I feel like we're misrepresenting just slightly, only because it wasn't just the MS that gave me this kind of drive. When I was 35, I fell really ill, and I spent a year in the hospital. I fell really, really ill with diverticulitis, and I actually had a colostomy bag, and I had just a horrible prognosis. I mean, they didn't think I was going to make it. And I was listening to the beginning of the podcast, and when I think something happens when you face the end of your life, and I took stock of my life, and I really decided to shake it up and change things. And that's really when I turned things around.
Oh, we're having hang on a second. Hold on, Jane. We are having a bit of a problem here. You're cutting in and out. Let's just
Sure.
take, you know what? Just let me see here. Hang in a second. It's just kind of fluttering and stuttering. Are you there still? Is that better?
Yeah, sure. Take your time.
No, you're still kind of strange. We may have to let you go and call you back right away. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. Okay, try again.
I was just saying that I think.
Okay. Jane, I'm going to hang up and call you back. Yeah. Are you okay? I'm going to hang up and call you right back. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to let Jane go at this time. I hate doing that. But in the meantime, let me just say that 420 is going to be happening real soon, April 20th. And if you're anywhere near Detroit or Windsor, Ontario, check out Windsor's 2-day, not today, 2-day, an event that lasts 2 days long. Our guest next week, a returnee guest, Paul Hartman, will be there speaking on the Saturday. So check out that 420. And I'm going to call Jane back now. So that was kind of like a commercial, but not really. I had to cover some time there. All right. Hopefully Jane will be nice and crystal clear this time.
Hello.
That sounds better. Okay. So okay. That's that sounds better. All right. So now tell me something. When you started to get over this.
I was just about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Finish up there. Yeah.
I was just about to share that I think that when you get that kind of diagnosis and you're at you're facing what could be the end of your life.
Yeah.
I think you take you stock and reprioritize things and come back living life a little bit differently, almost like a do-over. And that's what I feel like I've got is just a do-over, and this is how I'm doing it over.
Yeah. The way I looked at it was that when I was guaranteed by all these experts the same thing, I likened it to my life was a movie, And for some reason, the movie was coming to an end at that time, bit of a surprise. The movie ended, the credits started to roll, the lights came up in the theater, and I stayed in my seat, and then they started playing a different movie, and no one came to get my ticket. So I'm on borrowed time.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So, yeah, it's a bit of a bonus.
It's like you get to live again. You
Right.
get a do-over. It's nice.
It is nice. Yeah, a lot of reprioritization, right? And you see things a lot more clearly, don't you?
Oh, yes. If you're lucky. I don't know that everybody does when they get a second chance, but I certainly did. And I'm so grateful for the second chance.
How old are your
to do
children
things a
now?
little bit differently.
How old are your little kids?
They're 14 and 16.
14 and 16. And so they've known this whole story the whole time, I guess?
Yeah, they've only known me this way.
Right. And so when they were, you're 42 now, so they knew you in a wheelchair.
They did most of their life.
Yeah.
Most of their life, yeah.
And so they knew Mummy had a disease, and she's in a wheelchair, and a lot of the other mummies weren't. Their friends' mummies maybe weren't like that also. And then they've seen you get out of that wheelchair, so that must have been a fun day.
Well, yeah, but they have not had a fun life. I mean, it's because what got me out of that wheelchair was cannabis, and this is not. It is not a safe society for medicating mothers.
Right.
So my kids were very much shortchanged on life because this was not accepted. New Mexico, the state that I was living in, went legal in 2007. I've been medicating since 2005, but it wasn't socially acceptable. And Children and Family Services were at my house 3 separate times because of cannabis, once called by my mother. I mean, so there's a whole other downside. There's a big cost that comes with medicating with marijuana, and that's why I started my YouTube channel actually, and do the activism that I do online to try and normalize this for women and families and mothers, because women are still losing their children every single day because they are simply medicating with marijuana.
Right. That is amazingly that is so on its face backwards. It's just like you're supposed to be deteriorating as you go along with these medications, and then they do as a last resort the cannabis that should have been the first resort. See, I was lucky that way. They didn't offer me any of those kind of remedies, so I started on
and
the
then
cannabis.
Still try and criminalize you and take your children for using that medicine and being a good mom and being able to take my children to the park and do things like that rather than being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And this was, like I said, it was my own mother called once. So this is, my family didn't accept it. This was not an easy road.
Does your mother have any medical conditions whatsoever?
Sure. But, she's 70 years old, and she, is only recently coming around with the cannabis.
Right. So she was kind of,
even up until a few years ago, was very much ashamed by the fact that I use marijuana for medicine.
So she was one of those, I'm going to guess, she was one of those older folks where you go into their home and for whatever reason, whether it's your auntie or your grandfather, and you go to use the bathroom and take a peek in the medicine cabinet, and it's just stocked. It looks like a mini pharmacy, right? Was she one of those kind of gals?
Oh, you got it. You got it. And a fully stocked liquor cabinet as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's so backwards. Well, so listen.
It really, really is.
You got into YouTube. Now, what was the journey from you're just getting better and feeling good to transitioning into a YouTube performer and news bringer, information and light bringer? How did that happen? You just decided to get on one day, or?
Yeah. I got on social media, and in what I think it was 2012, I got on social media for the first time. I opened a Twitter account, and there were there were a couple of guys that were taking bong rips and uploading the video to YouTube and then sharing it on Twitter back and forth. And they started this thing called Team Seshvid, and I joined.
I'm sorry, what's that called?
Sorry,
I missed that. What's the name of it?
It was called Team Seshvid, and it was just this little, Twitter group of, people, middle-aged people on Twitter that would take bong rips and say hey to each other.
Right.
And they evolved into these little smoke sesh videos that we would share. And then after about 8 months, 9 months, that kind of, fizzled. And I was, I had left my husband of, 15, 16 years and needed to do something with my life. And I had some background in search engine optimization. So I was reading an article about search engine optimization saying that Google was going to start listing YouTube videos as top search results within 24 to 48 hours of publication. And prior to this, if you wrote a blog post, it would take about 8 weeks for Google to list your blog post as a search result.
Right.
So I thought, wow. So I started making cannabis videos about cannabis products that were in the industry just coming out and seeing how it would do, and my channel did really, really well. And Jane Dro was born.
Wow, that's amazing. So now I understand you have 6 million views on your videos in total.
I do. I'm close to 6 million views total. I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary since my first upload. That'll be 420 was my first upload to Team Seshvid.
Is that right? In 2013, that's when you did it, April 420, 2013?
Yeah, that was my very first upload.
Wow, that's
amazing. For the little group that we were sharing, yeah.
And do you do all the editing?
It's just been... I do. It's just me. I'm a one-woman show.
Oh, amazing.
And it's been really fun to be part of this evolution and part of this community and watch it evolve, and it's been great.
I'm so happy for you. That's great. So do you get a lot of people asking you advice, etc.? Actually, for a while, I ran this series on my channel called Dear Jane. And people would send me letters, and I'd read them in kind of a Dear Abby fashion and answer, how to talk to her parents about smoking weed and things like that. Right. That's fun.
Because, I would get so many emails and letters like that. So it spawned the Dear Jane series, actually. So, yeah.
Well, we're just going to play a
little chunk. And I do baking with Jane.
You bake with stuff? Are you?
Yeah, Baking with Jane is a series.
Are you familiar with watermelon? Not the fruit, but the person from Vancouver.
No, I'm not.
You should look up Watermelon. She's a guest on the show back a while ago. I've known her for a long time, but she is a baker extraordinaire. She ran for political office in Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, for council under the Sensible Party. Didn't get in, but she's a great person, and I'm sure you could swap some fantastic recipes.
Absolutely.
Look her up, Watermelon, and just put in Watermelon Cannabis. I'm sure it'll come up on YouTube. So I've got a little clip here from yourself from the other night, Saturday Night Live, March 31st, 2018. So I'm just going to play a little bit of you talking about, I guess you got a bong in your hand. Here we go.
Happy Saturday night, everybody. Happy Saturday night. Signing into the chat. I hope everybody's had a really good week. I've had a long week.
That's a green bong you've got there.
Where am I? Where is the live stream?
Yes.
Hi.
That's the take-along bong.
Here we go. Okay.
Okay, maybe I should have queued it up a little something else, but you've got a chat going on, and how many people get on that chat with you there?
Wow. I don't really know. Sometimes there's up to 70 people in that room on a Saturday night.
Oh, that's fantastic.
At any given time. Yeah.
And you do it every Saturday?
I do, every Saturday Night Live.
Wow, that's amazing.
Every Saturday night go live.
And that's the only time you broadcast your show?
Well, sometimes I do like an impromptu live. I'll go live on YouTube, but for dependability reasons, just Saturday night. But yeah, I go live whenever I feel like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And
then I try and upload, just the regular videos otherwise. But every Saturday night I do the live stream, and it's a lot of fun. And lately I've been getting sponsored by companies to do these big giveaways on the live stream, and that's been a ton of fun. We do like weed trivia and things like that, and so I'm working on getting some more of those sponsored for giveaways, and so they've been interactive and tons of fun.
Okay, so you've got a bong there in that video, a green one. We should put our logo of the show on there. What kinds of other ways do you take it? I mean, aside from eating, like, how do you actually? What's your personal methodology for infusing your foods, your whatever you're using? How do you do that? Do you just cook up the cannabis in an oil, or how does it go?
I do. Generally, I will either cook with keef or I will use coconut oil. I really like using coconut oil. Recently, I did a video on how to infuse coconut oil, but more importantly, I think in that video I share how to filter your can of butter or your can of oil so that it doesn't taste weedy. And so that's a little nug of goodness there that'll make your edibles taste a lot better.
Well, I'm
And
curious
I'm gonna
already.
be
I'm curious. How do you do that? How do you take the weed
oh,
taste out of
so
weed?
it's a water filtration is what you do. You basically make your can of butter or can of oil, and when it's all hot and liquidy still, put it into a glass dish and put some water in there and stick it in the fridge. And what will happen is the oil will solidify and float to the top, or butter, yeah. And then underneath the water just filters out all that crap. I mean, it just clarifies.
Oh, so you
And I
just
usually go through
yeah.
do that like 2 or 3 times, and you will be blown away at the difference in your can of butter or oil. And it's still just as weedy, I mean, it's not water soluble. So you're just using the water to filter it.
Wow. And then you use that to make all kinds of things.
Oh, yes. In fact, I actually had some extensive oral surgery last week. And in preparing for it on Monday night, I went live just impromptu like that. And I did a live baking with Jane because I was baking a bunch of edibles. And recently I made some medicated Muddy Buddies that just came out so good. Some blueberry lemon Muddy Buddies. And, when you filter your oil, it just takes the weed taste right out of it. And it's just, you get the most delicious tasting edibles.
So it's as simple as creating your own cannabis-infused oil and then just going ahead with any other regular recipe. And instead of adding butter or etc., you just add this can of butter. Is that it? I'm not a very good cook, by the way, as you can tell. That's what you have to do.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's it.
And the fats are good for you. And why do you choose coconut butter?
Well, I'll tell you, it is because I use cannabis in every way. So I don't just eat it. I don't just smoke it. I dab it, and I also smear it all over my body.
Oh.
So one of the reasons I use coconut oil is because it's healthier for me than the butter is. And but also what I do is I make it in the magical butter machine. I'm sponsored my channel by Magical Butter. I have a coupon code, Jane Drow. It'll get you a nice chunk off your magical butter machine. Sorry, I had to plug it.
That's
but,
okay. No, that's fine.
With the magical butter machine, what I do is I use the coconut oil, and then with my material, I run it through again with another batch of coconut oil, and I then add essential oils to that, and I use that to put on my body after my bath and my showers and things. I use that as my moisturizer. So if I
I really got to get on this.
I really.
So what happens when you start rubbing this cannabis oil all over your skin and your body? Does your whole body just start to numb out, or how? What's the sensation of that? There must be something.
No, you don't really get a sensation from it, but. If you are in pain, you can use this most certainly as a topical, and it will relieve it almost instantly. Cannabis salves have been used for a long time for topical reasons. And then just the coconut oil is great for your skin.
Huh.
But I really believe that what we're going to discover with all as we slowly get the science out there and the studies done is that we're going to find that cannabis is good for us as a preventative, antioxidant type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really try and incorporate the plant in every aspect of my life that I can.
Yeah.
Because I really believe it is that supportive to our life and to our system. And we have a whole endocannabinoid system that is just built to take every single cannabinoid that the cannabis plant has to offer.
Yeah.
Our bodies are literally built for this plant. So I'm into using it in every way I possibly can.
Yeah, I think I'm heading for that. I really want to take it in on a personal level. I'd like to record this, but I want to start. It's just the resources now, and I kind of don't really have the place to do this. But I want to eat it as a salad additive. I want to make like hummus from the seeds by soaking them like they were chickpeas. I want to use the oil. I want to vaporize. I want to use suppositories. I just want to do all of that. I think it's amazing. I mean, I'm doing some of those things, especially the suppositories. But I just think it's incredible how healthful it is. And at that level, how healthful it is and how deeply and heavily criticized and banned and illegalized it has been. And you have to get to the conclusion that there are some people that just don't want us to have it. Has it changed your thought patterns at all? Like when you, obviously you're thrilled that you're no longer confined to a wheelchair, obviously. But I mean, in the way that you've come up with, it's going to reorder some things in your brain, isn't it? Have you noticed effects on that level?
Well, yeah, absolutely. In lots of positive ways. Really, I can't think of any negative ways that it has affected my outlook or my life.
Right.
In fact, one of the conversations I'd like to start having on my channel is how effective THC is. In this conversation of legalization, we talk so much about the CBDs and the other cannabinoids, but it almost deflecting away from THC like it's a bad thing, the peace of mind and happiness that it provides. But if it weren't for the THC, I wouldn't be here today.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
Other cannabinoids.
Yeah.
The plant helps me most of the time from not suffering from this disease. I am always in pain. But it's the THC of the plant that has helped me cope with mentally dealing with the limitations, restrictions, all the bullshit. See that? Can I even say that on your show?
Oh, fuck
that comes along with this disease.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and I don't want that to get lost in the conversation, because if we don't talk about these things, if we don't keep it will get taken away from us. They will take away THC or give us a drop of it, and they'll produce this, in a synthetic form, and that's what will be available to us.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in talking about that, and also for fighting for your right to grow, because I believe if we fight for the right to grow, we'll have the right to access.
Yeah.
But we just have to be careful that we don't let the government take this away from us.
Oh, you're so right about that. But listen, I'm so happy to hear you say this because when I've learned about the angles that I've picked up on along the way is that this substance is forever been, for decades first it started with it's the demon weed, it's the devil weed, it's the marijuana from Mexico, and it's evil and dangerous, and it's all propaganda, and that's how terrible it was at the time. That's what it was. But over the years, people have been experiencing positive results from it, and then I noticed that they eventually started to say, okay, it can help you alleviate nausea, and it does offer some brief pain. Well, that's really all it does, and it's still a dangerous substance, and you still can't have it. But and they're sort of incrementally admitting things, and so now this bullshit factor has fallen back to that position of THC, where everyone now that's mainstream that I know is getting on the CBD bandwagon, and I hate it, because what I think is going on there is like, okay, I'll use the cannabis. I guess there's research. I'll take it. I'll try. But can I get it without the THC? Because I don't want to. And they don't realize that the whole plant is the thing. It's not just about extracting the CBDs. I mean, extract the CBDs and supplement with CBDs. Take it all the time. But I hate the notion that it's either an illegal thing or a dirty, bad thing or an immoral thing to partake of the THC. So these are the same folks that said it wasn't working at all. Now they're still demonizing one component in the plant, the THC, and it's just like the same old agenda. But obviously we've kicked the door down far enough in the last 80 years that it's all going our way. So that's great.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I really would like to get it through everybody's thick skull that it's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel good. and I live in America where we all pursuit of happiness. Are you kidding me? Every time you try to pursue happiness here, you're stuck down.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It's immoral to pursue happiness.
Did you get a permit for that enjoyment? Yeah, that's an enjoyment.
Right, exactly.
You have to pay
how much did you suffer for your drop of enjoyment?
Yeah.
So yeah. The joy is regulated. And that's got to stop.
I'm not sure about every single jurisdiction, but I recall when I used to be living in Vancouver, I remember I became aware of what's called an entertainment tax. So you had to pay extra money. If you're going to a comedy show or a movie or something like that, or some kind of live performance, it would be, say a $20 ticket, $10 ticket, whatever. And then there'd be a surcharge of literally called an entertainment tax.
Are you kidding me?
No, not at all. And
I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm. That's what's so sad about it. There was an actual component called an entertain. You're having fun. Oh, okay. Give us a couple extra bucks then. That's how ridiculous.
How did these things even pass? Who thinks this is a good idea? And most people thought it was a good idea to make it a thing. I mean, that's what's kind of creepy.
Well, now you're tipping into the second conspiracy part of the show. But basically, it's complacency on the part of the electorate and lobbying on the part of the people who benefit and profit from doing it that way.
Well, it's all about the money.
Yeah.
It's all about the money.
It's not?
I mean, we're completely threatening the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh,
which
for
is
sure.
huge.
Yeah, absolutely we are.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I notice now that, first the pharmaceuticals are like, no. And now they're saying, okay, but it's slow. Their introduction to take it up is slow because the pharmaceutical industry, I guess, realized at some point, look, this is definitely going to happen. We've been fighting it forever, but people are, they're going to get us. So we need to own it and we need to control it so that, that they won't lose the money. And this is why I preach self-determination, self-preservation. This is why I want people to listen to my show, your show. There's a lot of other great programs out there and information right in your face to be able to take the power, never mind the right to take it. The rights are always granted. I'm talking about the power and the ownership and the self-determination to go, look, I'm physically screwed up. I don't have the wherewithal to go to medical school and get all this thing solved over the next 7 years because I've got a dire medical condition. I'm going to grow plants. I'm going to learn about them, and I'm going to benefit from them. I mean, that's the end of it, really. Just get your own stuff and make sure you are taking all of this in. Look how well you're doing. I mean, I'm not supposed to be here right now.
It's not that simple.
No, it's not that simple.
Unfortunately, Alan. But here's my only thing with it is, that's great for the people that can grow and that are able to grow their medicine.
Sure.
But there's a whole group of people that are just too sick to do it.
Right.
And what kind of medicine are they going to have access to? This is our medicine.
A dispensary, maybe.
Thing.
You could get it.
Exactly. But the quality of the medicine that we get, that's in our hands now. And we have to keep it in our hands. We can't, because they're going to take it away from us. They've done it in Washington State. They took away medical here. They reversed it once it became recreational. So now medical has to pay recreational. Yeah,
I did not know this.
So no, and I mean, but look at it happened up there in Canada. You guys used to be able to grow your cannabis, and then they took it away from you or tried to. You can't get so complacent. You can't get so stoned with your bong and just not care and get relaxed about the rights as they are granted, because they will get taken away very, very quickly by the pharmaceutical industry who doesn't want you to have them.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah. No, I'm not saying everybody can do it, but that's my directive. I just say, I'm not going to a doctor to rely on him to tell me a bunch of prescriptions are going to help turn me around when I've heard your story, when I know my story, and I've heard so many more where people say, I tried this, then we did that, then there was surgery, then I did a bunch of drugs, blah, blah, blah. And then when that didn't work, as a last resort. Now, what does that mean, as a last resort? Why would it be a last resort?
Right.
That should be the first thing you do. You should
It
get
should
on
be
that
the
right
first
away.
resort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
it
going to
should be
take
the
this
first
moment
option.
right here to recap in my own words just for a second, if you let me do it. This is what I recommend.
Yeah.
This is a bulletin of recommendation right here. I'd like to drop this in front of, just to remind everybody, what all of this is. For me, let's call it a brief reminder. Okay, so what this is, folks, if you get stricken with a medical condition and you just found out about it from your doctor, there's always going to be a gap in time between learning about it and being treated or medicated for it. A few days, maybe next week, maybe they're going to bring you in a month or something. That right then is the moment that you need to avail yourself of this powerful substance and get on it right away. And in my case, for sure, you want to get on that oil immediately as a first resort with the THC. Don't take anything out of it. The whole plant, as best as you can do that, get it into an oil and take it in all of its forms before you even go back to the second doctor visit, when they're reassessing and retesting and getting ready to start your treatment and your medication. Because when they do the retesting at that point and you've been taking this powerful stuff and using it, they're going to find numbers that are better and more in your favor than they were when you were diagnosed a few days ago or a week ago or 3 months ago. Get on this right away is what I would say if it were me. So thanks for letting me get to that, because that's a real nugget that comes up from time to time. And then you don't want to do it as a last resort. Do it as a first resort, get some positive results from it, and then you'll feel it. You'll know that it is the thing that's doing the work.
It literally can't hurt.
It literally can't hurt, even though you were afraid of it when you started it. I mean, that's how so many people are. But I'm so glad you were able to turn it around. That's so fantastic.
Me too.
Yeah. Do you travel around much around your country, the United States of America?
I try to, but honestly, the medication was a problem. It still kind of is. It's still limiting. But now that we've progressed a little bit, I am able to fly within my country with my medication. At least I can fly out of my home state. I can't fly back in with medication, but I can fly out with medication.
Oh my God. That is ridiculous. You can fly out with it, but you can't fly in with it. And you have all the paperwork that says you're a medical user.
Correct. Well, it's mostly because each state has different laws.
Yeah.
So when I'm flying out of my state, I'm a resident here. So, I'm a legal medical patient.
Sure.
So there's really nothing they can do to me in the airport here. But once I get to another airport, if it's not legal there or I'm not a card holder in that state, they can arrest me. And that's why I can't fly back in.
And I suppose that goes for international travel as well. I mean, I've not tried this, but if you take, because I don't have an official prescription, but have you ever flown to a different country with any kind of your medicine on you and experienced trouble entering that country?
No, I personally have not, nor would I attempt an international flight. However, my dear friend actually had a run-in with your fine Popo up there when she and her girlfriend accidentally crossed the border and had weed on them.
Accident? Okay, well, if they accidentally crossed the border, how did that work? They had weed on them.
I guess they just got lost, and then all of a sudden they were in this line and they got caught. And they couldn't get out, and they got stopped, and the dogs came and they found the weed, and they were held, and they let them go and stuff. They kept the weed, and they kept, her little pipe and her little stash jar that I gave her. She was really heartbroken about that.
Yeah.
But she was very relieved that they let her go and just sent her back. And they also had a weapon in the car, so it was fun times.
See, that's the kind of logic that comes from these straight-thinking, non-cannabis minds. All of this nonsense back and forth. Just even the logical conundrum of, okay, so they came into the country, technically speaking, they made a mistake or whatever, but they came in with this illegal substance, and they didn't have to go to jail and spend a bunch of time in jail. They just booted them out and told them to get out of here, but they kept the stuff. And keeping the marijuana, keeping the cannabis, keeping the weed at the border because they're confiscating it because they don't want it to come into the country. Yet if they turned the person away who had it with it, it would also be out of the country. But they just take it. They take it all the time.
Right.
I have a friend who lives in Mexico, and she's been telling me about busts that have been happening where the cops just come in, they grab everything and leave. That's all they do. They don't arrest anybody. They just avail themselves of the goodies in the shop, and that's it. Then the folks have to restock. Basic thievery 101.
That's been happening a long time down here, though. I mean, even patient raids. Their grows, they just come in and they take their stuff and they break their plants and they leave. And oftentimes the person is not even arrested.
Well, I'm not advocating arrest.
They destroy and they go.
I don't like to advocate arrest, but in that particular,
no, but it's still crappy. They should just leave altogether.
No, they shouldn't be there at all. But I think
the plants and take the stuff.
Yeah, and I think if they are going in there to do that technically speaking, they should arrest them. That's what they're supposed to be doing, right? That's what they're needing to prevent this proliferation of this terrible substance, and we should be locking up the people that are doing it. So if they're not going to arrest the people, they really shouldn't be coming into the shop to take the stuff. And if they're going to come and take the stuff, they should be arresting the people. Once again, I'm not advocating their arrest. There's no logic to it. It doesn't make sense. It just reveals
No, there's no logic.
Yeah. I'd like to know where all that stuff goes.
There's no way you can obey to rules that don't have any logic to them.
No.
Yeah. So it's a system that's set up to catch you and keep you down.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're experiencing up here in Canada. We're getting rid of the 7 cannabis laws and replacing them with 45 new ones, and it'll be legalized then. I mean, that's what it really works out to. So you can't do international travel. That's too bad. You should go to Portugal. You could fly to Portugal.
Right. See? No, I think I'll see that within my lifetime.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't fly internationally with cannabis yet.
Right.
Not at least on, I'd fly with it in my system, but not on my body. And I remember that Colorado, when they legalized a few years ago,
yeah,
they had, before this was all worked out, they had like these amnesty boxes in their airport where you could just, drop any cannabis that you had if you were, I don't know how many people would, still do that. I wouldn't be one of those people.
Just drop it in the box. Everything will be okay. We'll send someone around to collect that later, and they're going to have a real good time this weekend for free. Jeez.
Yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to, because when police I'm convinced anyway, when they confiscate your weed, they take it home and get high.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure there's a couple of stickler cops here and there with pickles up their butt, and they think they're doing society a great favor by disposing of it the best way they can. But I've had weed taken off of me when I was in high school. Technically speaking, too young to take it in. We were sitting in a park, and a cop came up and just asked us what was in the bag, and we showed him, and he took it and said, "Don't come here again." That was the end of that. I mean, they just do it.
You should have said thank you.
Yeah. Don't drive while high, officer. Yeah, it's a really top down, upside down, crazy old world. That's for sure. Are you getting any kind of other appearances on other shows besides? I mean, you have your own show, but we had to get you on. Have you been on any other cannabis themed shows in the past little bit?
I actually, way back in the day, you might know this guy, Matt Myrna. Do you know who he is?
Matt Lerner?
Matt Myrna.
Oh, sure, yeah, Canadian guy, yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Canadian guy.
Yeah, Matt, I've met him.
Yeah, I was on the marijuana zone a couple of times way back in the day when I lived in New Mexico, talking about snow bongs.
Snow bongs. Tell us about that. What's that?
Well, if I'm just a dumb American, so I think that Canada is just like one big snowflake. So I have the impression that you have snow all the time. And what you can do if and when you have snow is you can put some of that snow in your bong where the ice catcher is, and it is the smoothest hit you will ever take out of a bong. Is if you pack that bong with snow.
And you can pull the vapor or the smoke through it?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely. They're just itty bitty, shaved ice crystals,
Oh, that's a
and
fantastic
and it
idea.
cools the hit and just filters it by with all those little snowflakes.
Well, I'm gonna
Just
have
the same thing, like we were talking earlier about filtering the cannel oil. It's the same kind of filtration process, just with
right.
colder water molecules.
Wow, that's great. I'm gonna have to. Now I'm excited for winter. We just got past winter, but I can't wait for next time to try that. Um,
Yeah,
that's
if you think a bong hit with ice in the chamber is nice, just imagine, snowflakes, because all those little, it's just a millions and millions of little ice cubes almost.
right.
It's super super sweet.
Oh, that's a great idea. I like it. I like all of the things that you're doing, and I'd like to get you back on the show sometime. And I'm so happy. I want to just recap if you haven't heard the beginning of the show, just go back and listen to it. But Jane is a person with MS, and she has found herself so incapacitated as to spend 6 years in her 30s in a wheelchair. Later had kids. Now she ran a half marathon, and she's working on a full marathon while she's productive enough to put her own YouTube channel out there that's getting 6 million hits with a substance that she swears is helping her out when nothing else would. That's the whole show in 30 seconds right there. I'm so glad
Wow,
that
you're amazing.
I'm so glad that you were came on. I mean, that's the stark point of it. I mean, that's what we need everybody to understand. You just take it all in and you enjoy it, and that's all. It's a perfectly decent substance. The thing that concerns me though is let me talk to you about this. Without giving any names, you have to make sure that you obtain your cannabis from a reliable source that doesn't have pesticides and other gunk in it. How do you do that? How do you achieve that you're getting good stuff?
Well, I thank you for bringing that up, because I am a huge believer in not using chemicals to grow your medicine. And, it has not always been easy because, chemically grown weed is cheaper and easier to come by a lot of the times. Just like McDonald's or fast food, it's going to be
Right.
it's going to be cheaper, and it's not going to be as good for you. But I'm very very fortunate that now that I'm in California, that we grow some of the finest weed on earth here, in the Emerald Triangle, and the sun grown cannabis, the organic sun grown cannabis that comes out of my state is just unbelievable. And so there's a lot of access to that, and even though it's not tested here, there's enough of the culture growing that way out here that it's easy enough to come by, and again, I'm a believer in growing your own. I just started to grow it. As a matter of fact, I just brought in 7 babies 48 hours ago. I'm a new mommy.
You've got
Brought in
7
7
plants?
clones. Yes,
Well, that's not allowed.
7 plants.
You're only supposed to have 4 up
Well,
here.
Well, here I'm allowed to have a lot more than 7.
No,
In
I
fact,
know.
I'm going to be bringing in a lot more than 7.
I'm sure you are. And so do you get different strain? I mean, what
So,
kinds of different strains are you dealing with?
well, the ones that I just brought in are Purple Punch, Orange Cookie, Lemon OG, and Lava Cake.
Lava cake. Oh, that sounds good.
Lava Cake. And then in a couple of weeks, once those babies are born, in a couple of weeks, I'll be bringing in some gelato and some do-si-do.
Wow. I've not heard of any of
They're
these.
all into naming the strains after the Girl Scout cookies. All the different varieties out here now. So
That's so good. And do you experience different sensations from blend to blend? I mean, obviously there's a different taste to these different strains, but do you experience alternate, what would I call it, sensations?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And those depend on the not just the THC level, but the cannabinoid makeup and also the terpenoid makeup. We're discovering so much about terpenes now. That's really, really interesting. Are you familiar with the whole terpenes and what they're learning about that?
Not enough to turn down your opportunity to explain it to us.
Well, okay, so, I think the easiest way to explain it is, everybody knows about aromatherapy. And about like lavender, I think is one of the most common ones. And how calming lavender is. It helps you sleep and it helps with anxiety. If you smell it, you can feel calm right away. So if you eat the lavender is actually linalool is what you're smelling when you're using lavender essential oil. It's actually linalool, and if you can eat it, so you can take a very small amount of this terpene linalool, and it will calm you. And in many of the cannabis strains that have a calming effect, it is high in linalool. So by adding the individual terpenes or a mix of the terpenes yourself, you can really manipulate or build your own strain, if you will. You can break it down and build it up. And so they've been able to break down all these really common strains of like sour diesel and OG Kush, and you get the complete terpene profile, and they're actually able to bottle the strain.
Wow.
So talk about, getting really, really far away from like the natural organic nug of the plant. But these food terpenes are added to all of our stuff. And you can buy these terpenes online, and you can add them in when you get high. It's like eating a mango. You've heard
Right.
If you eat a mango when you're high, you get higher. Well, it's true.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is the myrcene, and that's the terpene that's in mango.
Myrcene. That's
myrcene.
MYRCINE. Is that what that is?
No, sir. It's MYRCENE.
Oh, CENE. I'm sorry.
Myrcene.
Okay.
And so what myrcene does is it allows for more of the cannabis and cannabinoids to pass through the blood-brain barrier. So that's why it gets you higher if you eat a mango after you get high. Now, if you just eat a mango without any, THC in your system, it's not going to do anything. It's going to be a delicious mango. But if you eat it when you're high, you're going to get higher. And if you smell, linalool or lavender essential oil when you're high, you're going to get calmer.
Right. Wow. Okay, tell us about chocolate. One of my favorite things. It also triggers the same receptors. Have you mixed? You must have done all kinds of chocolate mixing with this stuff, right?
Well, actually, the reason why chocolate does that, I'm a nerd and a half, if you haven't figured it out already. The reason why chocolate does that is because of the soy lecithin that is in the chocolate.
Really?
So when you're making, soy lecithin, and if you don't want to use soy, you can use sunflower lecithin. What lecithin does is it acts like a lube. A lube between the blood-brain barrier is the easiest way I can describe it. So it makes all your little molecules and your cannabinoids slide a lot more can slide through. So when you add soy lecithin to when you add lecithin to your oil or butter, you will get it will be about 30% more effective.
God, I did not know that. Thanks for telling me that. Let me drop a bomb on you. So when I was doing my cannabis, I eventually started to take intravenous vitamin C. This was a way to, vitamin C is good for you. The end. I don't care what people say. It's good for you. It's a very healthful property. And I was taking it in my arm in a needle. It was very expensive to do this back and forth to the naturopath, and you'd load in like 50 milligrams. Can't even remember now. 50, 75. I did 125 sometimes. Kind of an arduous process. Then I found out about liposomal vitamin C, and I started taking that. Well, not to get too bogged down with the details, if you look it up, lipo is in fat, liposomal vitamin C, and it's you're making it with this soy lecithin. This is how you do it, and this is the fat that's used. So the soy lecithin is carrying the vitamin C from a concentrated apple juice as well as ascorbic acid. I know the jury's out on the complete health aspect of ascorbic acid versus vitamin C, but I was banging that stuff like crazy. And you just drink it, and it's far more easy to deal with than sticking it in your arm. And that makes sense now because I was doing them in concert together, the green stuff and the orange stuff together. That's the soy lecithin helping that out as well. Amazing. I got to get back on that too. Have you ever made that?
If you look, no, I haven't. But if you look at the ingredient on chocolate, most chocolate contains soy lecithin.
Soy
And I
lecithin,
just
yeah.
wanted to add that little. Yeah, so that's why when you add wheat to chocolate, it makes it a little bit more intense because of the soy lecithin.
Oh, okay. I was hoping it was to do with the actual cacao itself or something of that nature.
No, sadly, no. It's one of those additives that they put in
Okay.
there. Yeah. But you can get it off Amazon. You can get yourself a big tub of soy lecithin for like $14 off Amazon. Lasts you a lifetime.
Wow, that's amazing. Listen,
You need the powdered kind, by the way.
Oh, the powdered kind, yeah, exactly. It's sort of a granulated type, isn't it? Yeah, it's a strange.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we do have a couple of questions. At least one question from our audience, and then I'm going to go to some breaking news. So it's not really breaking because I'm going to take the audience question first. But Stiletto Supermom. So I'd kind of like to meet her right on that. Just her name is Stiletto Supermom. So she wears stilettos. Yeah. She's a supermom. Sounds like you in a way. She says, would you ever come to Canada? Consider that we are a foreign country given your status. But would you ever come up here?
I would love to. It's actually on my bucket list to see Canada. So I am just waiting for the opportunity, actually. I would love to. Can't wait for the opportunity.
We've got a lot of great places here across a very big chunk of land, but I'm sure anybody listening to this show or anybody in the cannabis community or folks that are aware of your health triumphs would be thrilled to have you up here sometime. There is a lot of 420 activity going on up here. I know you probably can't make plans at the last minute, but please come up here and find a way to visit us at some point. And if you did, God, we'd have you in the studio. Yeah. That'd be great if you came to Toronto anyway.
Maybe next year, maybe next 420, I'll spend it in Canada. That would be awesome.
What are you going to do this year for 420?
I really, it's going to be a quiet one. I haven't made that many plans. A friend of mine is coming down for a visit, and I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. I'm sure we're going to consume a lot of cannabis, but I don't think that we're making any big wild plans. I don't think we're going to go to any big festivals or anything like that. I think it's just going to be, a quiet one at home with friends and loved ones.
Okay, well, don't accidentally cross the border and have your stash eliminated and sent back out, okay? Because then you'll have a tough time joining us later. But we do have, I would have done this later on, but I'm going to keep you on the line. This just came in right now. Here's a little, a little science for you. Okay, a little science for you, and check this out. We have a problem. It turns out that in the state of Illinois, have you ever been to Illinois, Jane? I'm laughing.
I have.
I'm laughing, but this is terrible. Illinois, on Gizmodo. This is a new piece that was just put in front of my face. It was released a couple of days ago. People are bleeding from their eyes and their ears after smoking synthetic pot in Illinois. It's a sentence that just about sums up 2018 so far, dealing with an outbreak of synthetic weed that makes its users bleed from eyes and ears. The Illinois Department of Health reported that since March 7, at least 22 people have developed severe bleeding soon after taking synthetic pot products. The bleedings not only occurred from their eyes and ears, but their noses and their gums as well. Patients have also vomited up and urinated blood, experienced large unexplainable bruises, and had extremely heavy menstrual bleeding. There's been no single product tied to all the cases, though the majority of patients recalled buying their products from dealers, stores, and friends around their Chicago area. As of yet, no reported deaths. Despite the perception that synthetic cannabinoids are safe and legal alternative to marijuana, many are illegal and cause severe illness, said Nirav D. Shah. He's the director of the IDPH. Public Health of Illinois, I guess. The recent cases of severe bleeding are evidence. I'm laughing not because I'm glad people are getting hurt, but this is another example of pharmaceutical mayhem. I don't recall in my history of knowing about cannabis or using it, folks, bleeding out. It's a synthetic cannabinoid. Keep away from that shit. This is what they're trying to promote. Manufacturers of these products either spray chemicals like Organogram here in Canada, believed to mimic the high of conventional marijuana onto smokable herbs, or sell the mixtures in a liquid form that can be vaped. The products are packaged as Spice, K2, or 100 other names, containing an unregulated and ever-changing cocktail of chemicals that can lead to widely different experiences for users. Leaving aside the Ebola-like trips from hell seen with these recent cases, users have reported psychotic effects, including extreme anxiety, paranoia, and hallucinations. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, others have died. Well, they did die, apparently, in the same article. They say they did and didn't. And with the federal and state governments scrambling to ban the ingredients commonly found in these products, manufacturers have continuously formulated new, untested combinations of cannabinoids. A 2015 report by the Centers of Disease Control noted, at this point, there's no concrete answer as to how to exactly spot the products that are causing the bleeding. An earlier report by the IDPH speculated something in them that seems to behave like a super warfarin. That's, warfarin is a blood thinner. It's a rat poison. Referencing the commonly used blood thinner. It blocks the effects of vitamin K in the body, and that these blood thinners take a long time to flush out of the system, which means the bleeding episodes will last for a while. Fun stuff. Synthetic marijuana, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your doctor no thanks. Thanks for listening to that. That's glad to get that in there.
Well, it's actually, unfortunately, something that I'm really familiar with. And I think any, American listening to your show is completely familiar with that story that you just relayed. This is an alternative legal spice is what it's called. And it's synthetic marijuana, and it is sold in gas stations and head shops. All mostly in states where it is cannabis is not legal, so it's being marketed as legal weed. The problem with this, though, is that there are a lot of chemicals in it, as you just read. The reason why the police here can't keep it off the shelves is because what happens is they make it illegal, but then the manufacturers just change one molecule of the chemical makeup, and they just alter it slightly to make the substance not illegal anymore. And they can't keep up with, the laws can't keep up with it, and it's being driven by money. And so that's how these products are being sold and why they're evolving so quickly.
Wow. Okay, we're going to have to get to the point where we're wrapping up soon, but let me just ask you, do you know anything about growing clubs? Do you have any of that down there? Growing clubs? Sort of.
What do you mean growing clubs?
Well, people form an informal, non-business, non-professional, non-registered sort of a collective, and like, let's say you'll grow a bunch and I'll grow a bunch, and then we can trade. It's sort of a, like a co-op deal, or.
Yes, co-ops. That's language that yes, I understand.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. I was
the border.
Yeah, I was no, you're fine. I was actually part of a patient co-op myself when I first started growing. So yes, I've not been part of a co-op recently, and I don't know how many are going on here, where I live, but absolutely we have patient co-ops like that.
Oh, that's good. We need to do more of that here. You can just completely take the power away from these purveyors. I am advocating a full-on governmental boycott, absolutely, from any synthetic marijuana, but also the stuff that's being sold as the official business of the government of Canada and the various provinces. I'm saying grow your own, get your own, stick to the black market, the gray market. Let's grind these guys down to a pulp. That's what I say. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
You don't have to take it, but I think it's a good advice. Just before we get going, Jane, and you're so lovely to speak with. It's been great having you on the show. Thanks for answering my questions, and I've got a million more, but I just don't have the time at this point. So I want to make sure that you get out everything you need to get out, to tell everybody where you can be found. Tell us about your Twitter, and as well, tell us if there are any MS organizations, or et cetera, or any patient organizations that you know of that could benefit from your channel and these kinds of informational blasts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate it. Your questions were awesome and thoughtful. And I appreciate having the opportunity to share with your listeners.
Oh, thanks very much.
I am at Jane Dro pretty much everywhere. I'm on YouTube, and I am on the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook, Jane Dro or Jane Dro 420. You can find me everywhere. And my main shtick is our videos. Oh, and I also produce bongs. So
You produce what? Sorry?
From time to time.
You make
I
bongs?
make bongs from time to time. Yeah. I make some glass, grow by Dro glass. And I'm excited because I'm going to be producing some more this week, this year. This year. So I'm excited for the pieces that are coming out this year, and I think that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you came
on. Social medias.
All over the place.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so definitely look for Jane's tweets, and definitely have a look at her on YouTube Saturday Night Live. If you're not watching the NBC version, check out what Jane is doing on Saturday. Feel free to contact her. Feel free to engage with her YouTube page, and it's been a lot of fun having you on. I really, once again, I'm always taken by this. This I've said this a lot of times now. But I absolutely mean it every time I say it. I am so thrilled that people are able and find a way to take what's, a bad deal. Got a shitty deal of cards when things started. There's no getting around that. When you find yourself saddled with a disease, and so many of, I'm going to say us, folks have been able to take that and turn it around, and you've created a positive from it. Who knows what you would be doing right now if you were living, a life where you weren't given that medical sense. You'd be a completely different story right now. But that's a champion.
Right.
You're a warrior, and I appreciate it. I salute your efforts, and I think you're a great woman. It's nice having you on.
Thank you very much. This is awesome. A lot of fun, really. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll let you go. That's Jane, everybody. She's fantastic, and she will be coming back sometime, and we hope to get her up to Canada. Yeah, that's great. I just want to do a couple of quick plugs before we get out of here. Again, the 420 in Windsor, Ontario is going to be fun. The folks from Detroit always come down to Canada for that. I'm going to let that hang a minute because people say, down to Canada? What do you mean? That's crazy. Yeah, that's the way it goes. So 420 is going to be great this year. I might be going to that. If I'm going to one at all, I'm going to the one in Windsor because our guest next week, once again in the studio, we're excited to have him back, is Paul Hartman, master grower, among many other talents. And quick shout out to my own self and some folks I've gotten involved with recently over at Guantanamera. That's spelled the numeral 1 and then TONAMARA, Guantanamera. That's us. This is a Thursday night jam, and that's fun stuff. We have a lot of great musicians coming in for that. It's been 3 weeks down, and the next one is coming up in just a couple of days. And if you can get downtown Toronto, it's at 202 Spadina Avenue, just north of Queen, just south of Dundas. And we help ourselves to the plant. Come on in to check it out. I'm sure you will enjoy the company, and the music is great. The players who are the house band, they rotate around, but the anchor is the drummer, Jay. He's fantastic, and you should really come down. If you bring an instrument or you play one, there's some instruments there you can get in for free. Danny Menlo, the producer of this show, is helping us get the word out, and was there last week and saw firsthand why he knows it's a good idea for you to come down. I get up on stage and say a few things, introduce the folks. People get up and have a nice, good old time. It's been really fun for me, and we're going to continue this for some time into the future. And speaking of the future, as I say, next week our guest is Paul Hartman, and we have lined up a series of fascinating guests up and down the rest of the month. I think we're well deep into May now, and it's kind of frustrating having a show that's only once a week. We can only do 50 guests a year. I'm sure there are hundreds of people that need to get on the show and that we would like to feature. So with that, let's just get out of here. It's been a long one, but I hope you picked up some information you could use, and I thank you for listening to Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. It's been a fun time. It's been really cool to speak with her, and it just puts a smile on my face. She's doing a half marathon. That's incredible. I can't even do a marathon. Too damn lazy to get that thing going on. But do come on next week. We will be back with another fantastic show, and I sure hope that you enjoy it. Peace out.